It's Thursday, the 7th of September, 2023. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Jennifer Duke.
Good morning, Michael.
Jen, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Let's get cracking. Story number 1, the economy expanded 0.4% in the June quarter and 2.1% on an annual basis. But we're actually in a per capita recession. Jen, what is a per capita recession?
So that basically means that population growth has outstripped economic growth, and that's been happening for 6 months, so 2 quarters. This quarter, GDP shrank 0.3% on the per capita basis. Some of that is simply because our population is recovering post-pandemic, so that's particularly in terms of international students returning. And Treasurer Jim Chalmers described this result as steady and sturdy in the face of unrelenting pressure. And while there are challenges ahead, he reckons we face them from a position of relative strength. Chalmers was also pretty quick to say that every fourth quarter we tend to see per capita GDP growth fall back a bit, but it's not actually that common to see it fall 2 quarters in a row.
Of course, you are the economics correspondent for Capital Brief in your day job. So this is something that you look at it very closely. What might the next few quarters look like?
So China's slowdown is having an impact on the Australian economy at the moment. And Chalmers mentioned this in a press conference yesterday. He said that international uncertainty was pretty significant for the outlook, and exports are driving a lot of our growth at the moment. So you can see why that's a big concern. He expects the economy is going to be relatively flat over the next 12 months or so. And that seems like a pretty reasonable expectation, kind of given what we're seeing right now.
All right, on we roll to story number 2. The Productivity Commission is getting a new chair, and it will no longer be the recently announced Chris Barrett.
So in July, it was announced that Barrett was going to take over the role from Michael Brennan, who's the current chair, for a 5-year term. But he's pulled out of the position now because he wants to stay with the Victorian government in a new role for him, which is as Treasury Secretary. So the current Grattan CEO, Danielle Wood, has been given the role instead at the PC. So she's going to be the first woman heading up the commission. And she's a really outspoken economist. So I've discussed with her before, and she's never shied away from criticising the government on things like tax reform, stage 3 tax cuts, and other significant and contentious topics. And Treasurer Jim Chalmers was pressed about this at that press conference yesterday, and he said he had no issues with her having her own views.
Good. Bit of lively debate. I think that's actually a good thing. On to story number 3. Some of the nation's biggest companies are being confronted by shareholders who are seeking answers about how their financial support for campaigns on the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice to Parliament stacks up with their business's purpose.
So the Australian Shareholders Association CEO Rachel Waterhouse has told the Sydney Morning Herald that her investors are busy writing to companies about their concerns on this. So there's about 120 who are volunteer retail investor representatives at the association, and those people are going to use upcoming AGMs and meetings with company chairs to ask for explanations about how their voice donations align with their company's strategies. Now, a survey by the association found that 70% of respondents didn't support donations, and that's to the yes or the no side of the campaign.
Story number 4, Jen, a bit of a warning from the Australian Tax Commissioner, Chris Jordan. He's complained that a growing group of profitable small businesses are deliberately avoiding paying tax and superannuation.
Yeah, so he issued that warning at a Tax Institute Summit speech in Melbourne yesterday, and he said that more and more he's seeing small businesses treating their debts to the ATO as a free loan. He reckons it's unfair, unacceptable, and it really needs to stop, and he's asking accountants and tax professionals to help them deal with the problem. So right now, the ATO is owed about $50 billion in unpaid tax debt, and $33 billion of that is from small businesses. He acknowledged that some small businesses are doing it pretty tough, but he warned that they will be cracking down on deliberate tax avoidance, saying it was simply theft from the community.
Okay, last one. Story number 5. Facebook is pulling its news tab out of the UK, France, and Germany as Meta really emphasises that its plan for the business is to move away from deals on news content.
Yeah, and those are actually some of the social media giants' biggest markets in Europe. And while Facebookers can still share news links themselves, it marks the end of deals with news publishers and the company to provide content in that way. So in Canada at the moment, users can't even see or share links to news because the government there is forcing Facebook to pay news publishers a fee in compensation. Meta said in a blog post that people don't go to Facebook for news and political content. I think most people would probably agree with that. Instead, they're there to connect with people. And globally, just about 3% of what people see in their feed is news, according to Facebook. But in 2021, Facebook temporarily blocked news publishers from sharing content on its Australian service. So this isn't without precedent.
Yeah, indeed. All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Jen.
Thanks, Michael.
It is Thursday, the 7th of September, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed Business News wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to have a listen to the new episode of How Do They Afford That, our sister podcast that is all about making your money work a little bit harder for you. The new episode came out yesterday and it focuses all on saving for education. It's a really important topic. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.